get sat down, get the tea ready, because everything, and I mean everything, has kicked off. Hope we're all ready for some stale tea today. I hope you're all prepared for some hyper stale tea today, because the tea I'm serving you is literally around 2.5, 3 weeks old. But I saw this very recently and I just could not resist talking about it because it was so juicy. And there's just such a roller coaster in this comment thread. Basically, James Charles has come forward and spoken out against Wet n Wild because Wet n Wild responded to a tweet where people were accusing them of copying the James Charles palette. So this whole thing is like very juicy tea, and I feel like I would be doing a disjustice to this community if I was not to comment on this myself, and if Pepper was not to comment on this myself. What do you think, Pepper? Hell yeah, bitch! Okay, can we honestly stop with the language though, please? Thanks, babes. So Wet n Wild tweeted out saying, "First look at our new 40 palette available exclusively at RuPaul's DragCon New York City, coming to Wet n Wild Beauty Fall 2019. Hashtag Wet n Wild Beauty." So obviously very juicy tea. Now somebody that's obviously a fan of Pepper tweeted back to them, "Papa, what do you think?" "I love my fans, bitch." Becca Chu, that's the name of the Twitter account, tweeted back in response and just said, "Being affordable doesn't mean you can steal other people's ideas, especially without consent, and profit off them. You may think you're clever with this right now, but wait until you get sued." This is very confusing just because Wet n Wild's new 40 palette, you can talk about shades, but the layout isn't the same as the James Charles palette. Like it's completely different. If anything, it looks the same as every other 35 palette that's on the market, but with 40 instead of 35, because it has like an extra row of shades. There was a generic mold which was mass produced by a mold factory that made black palettes that were called 35 palettes, and you could fit 35 eyeshadow pans in them. They were made in such a high volume that other factories could then buy those at a cheap price because they didn't have to contract manufacture it themselves. They could buy from someone else that's already made it. That's why everyone has the same version, or used to at least have the same version. Now there's a few variations, and then all these different factories could put their own formulas into the pans that then go into the palette. But that's why so many brands do have 35 palettes, and often the actual plastic is the same. It's because they're all manufactured in the same factory, the actual plastic palette, but then the shadows are pressed and mixed and formulated in individual cosmetic manufacturing factories. Wet n Wild responded directly to this tweet and said, "The James Charles Morphe palette was purchased by Morphe from Jiaxing Huasheng Cosmetics. Jiaxing Huasheng Cosmetics." You're welcome. That got 5,000 likes. That's like big likes for Wet n Wild to be getting. I think, at least on Twitter, it's significant. James Charles jumped in on this. He didn't really get as much positive engagement as Wet n Wild did on their comment, actually. But James Charles got in this, and this is kind of like an interesting story for us to talk about. The reason I wanted to talk about this because you can kind of support everyone in the situation. Like, it's not like one person's right and one person's wrong. There's kind of like multiple things happening. It's like a little traffic jam at the intersection. Everyone is weaving. Pepper, what do you think of weaving? "I don't need no weave, bitch." And then you've got beautiful ears. I wouldn't hide them. So James Charles tweeted out in response directly to Wet n Wild Beauty saying, "You're tweeting information out of context to start drama. This is beyond unprofessional. Jiaxing Huasheng is the manufacturer that produces my palette, which I designed and formulated myself." Really, James? You formulated it yourself? I literally had to get into £60,000 worth of debt, doing my degree, to be able to understand how to like work in a lab, formulate things, and that's alongside studying biology, chemistry, maths, A-level. Formulating cosmetics is no small business. It's not just 1+2. You're working with molar concentrations, like brutally honest cold hard formulation is pure chemistry. It's not as difficult as medical related subjects, but it's more tedious. With medical related chemistry, I would say it's more lateral. You really have to have a good understanding of a lot of things. Whereas with formulating cosmetics, it's more very time consuming, making very small adjustments and being creative and how you can substitute things for different things. But I do think it's interesting, James is sat here on his high horse. I formulated it myself. I think you have to say it very loosely. You can say I collaborated with Morphe, I gave input on the formulas, but I kind of feel like there's a difference between giving input on a formula and physically formulating yourself. I literally had to spend so much investing in all my ingredients and my entire setup to start formulating my own cosmetics. So I guess that's why I'm a bit defensive, because I'm still like ugh, when I think about how much I had to spend. But anyway, sorry, moving on swiftly. Because you can't just buy like, oh, 50 ml of one ingredient, 50 ml of another. Like if you need cosmetic grade caprylic triglyceride, you have to buy like a litre, 2 litres, 5 litres. Often with a lot of my ingredients, I have to buy a kilo, and I'm using like 5 grams per sample I'm manufacturing to make and see how things work. And then Rena responded directly saying, it is context. They were quickly explaining something to someone who was concerned about copying, when in reality, it's just a basic rainbow palette that any manufacturer could make. Oh! Do you want some aloe vera for that burn? You already have drama. What's the point in making more? Again, she got like nearly twice as much engagement on that tweet than James did in his response. People are really sort of siding against James in this situation. James responded directly and said, the manufacturer of my palette has nothing to do with the conversation. Every brand has a manufacturer, and most manufacturers make any makeup product. Not completely true at all. Because I work in manufacturing and I have done professionally for 7 years now, 8 years maybe I'm creeping up to. I started when I was literally in my teens. The factories usually specialise in something. It's not so much that any factory can make any product. Maybe some very, very experienced particular factories can. But for example, I make my liquid lipstick formula in a factory that specialises in liquid lipsticks, lip glosses. They do also do eyeshadows now, but I don't manufacture any of my formulas with them for eyeshadows and pigments. I use another factory, which I use for a long time when I do my metallic crush pigments. I like their premises, I like their experience, they know what they're talking about, but it's not like you can go to any factory and just say, I want this made. You can just give them a formula and you can give them an ingredients list, but they need to have the right equipment. And there's a lot of different types of equipment for different types of formulas. For example, like my highlighter formula, I really want to make that myself. That's why I've not sold it yet, because it goes through such a long process. It takes 3 days to make one product. It's not really cost effective for me to even find a factory to make it for me, because even if they have the right equipment that can process the liquid to solid and all the other various processes, I would still have to pay them like a lot. Anyway, I'm just going to continue and end my rant in its own tracks. Their tweet makes it seem like my palette was already designed by a third party and Morphe just bought it, also known as private labeling. Yeah, but it's difficult to even use private labeling in the conversation, because in Morphe's like early days, and by early days I mean like the first 4 years or so, they were producing an identical palette to other people. They just swapped two of the shadows round. That was with a lot of the 35 palettes and the smaller palettes as well. And Morphe wasn't really famous enough for people to be copying them, so it's kind of like difficult ground, James. You collaborated with a brand that does have a history of accusations against them for private labeling, which they haven't proven wrong. I've even shown in my own videos in the past a generic palette versus a Morphe palette, and they were identical in packaging, apart from the label on the top and 1 or 2 of the shadows flipped over. And alongside that, there is obviously some tea with the previous founder of Morphe coming for a beauty influencer's job, because that beauty influencer did a video talking about Morphe and private labeling, and that was a whole situation in a situation. This is not only not true at all, but it also discredits the work I put into designing the palette, picking all of the shades, and the year I spent working on the formulas. He's so dramatic, literally so dramatic. Oh, it's so frustrating, because it's Morphe's generic palette layout, right? With the shades down the middle. That's something that Morphe's done, right? Because James doesn't own Morphe, he's not changing the design of all their palettes. Picking the colours, groundbreaking. Yes, it does take time, but it's picking the colours is nothing compared to actually physically formulating them. Like getting a yellow to perform. If you've bought an eyeshadow palette with a yellow shade before and you've noticed how they don't show up so well, it's so difficult to get high performing yellows and stuff like that. So it's all good to pick a shade, but like the real work is in the formulation and making it amazing. The real work is the very, very talented professional cosmetic formulators that spend the hours and hours and hours formulating each of these shades individually to make sure they perform as well as possible. That's why, for example, the original Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette was legendary, because every shade was formulated individually, whereas some of their later palettes, I found them less impressive. When I checked the ingredients, they were just using the same formula minus the pigment that they were switching between the different formulas. This palette was my original design, point blank period, and Wet n Wild has ripped it off. Really? That's really interesting, because James could get sued for that by Wet n Wild for accusing them of ripping off his palette, because it's a colourful palette. Morphe had a previous colourful palette before James's, and so many other cosmetic brands have had colourful eyeshadow palettes. Like, makeup isn't a new thing, so it's so confusing. Like, I'm not even going to do a video swapping the colours around. It makes sense with the Jaclyn Hill palette with the Makeup Geek one, because it was literally groups of colours. Like, there was these mauves, there was the green shades, and there was particular pops that were reciprocated from the Makeup Geek palette that she was working on to the Morphe palette that she made, but with a colourful palette of rainbow, like, oh my god, a red shadow, a yellow shadow, a yellow shadow, a blue shadow. It's like so confusing. Morphe used to be $20, was it $22 plus coupon? Whereas now they raised the price to what, $39? Was it that much of an increase in quality? That's the question. I have nothing against Morphe, and someone can tell me in the comments if it was a boost in quality. But the whole situation seems crazy. We all remember James' swatch video where he would be like, I'm gonna do a swatch, and then the camera would jump to like, and it was obviously he swatched it underneath his finger and then it skipped through. You can very clearly see that when James pulls his finger away from the swatch, there's a pre-existing swatch underneath it, a little bit further upwards, and you watch this clip very carefully. You'll see the camera jump when James is about to swatch, and suddenly the pigment appears underneath his finger before he's done the swatch. Did you catch it? Let's watch it again. This is from James' original video. Here I've isolated the moment so you can see the exact point where James does a cutscene through to where the swatch suddenly appears.
Black shade in the palette called Spooky.
Now this is where everything kicks off.
I just love being sister spooked.
James, what on earth are you doing here? Everybody, I draw your attention to the first few seconds where you can clearly see the swatch is already on the skin before James goes to do the live swatch.
And that story's a long one. This shade is called Playground, and it just means so much to me to be able to name a shade after Anthony in the palette.
In this clip, I've caught James out again going over pre-existing swatches. You can see the camera suddenly jumps, and as he's pulling his finger across, the area that he hasn't reached yet is already bright blue. Here's a clip again just so you can see it happening. I'm sorry, but 3.8 million people saw this video. James tends to make friends and fall out with drama channels when it suits him. That's what I would say. I have nothing against James. I've spoken to James privately a few times, but I think he just pick up people and let them go when it suits him, when it benefits him. But that's not really any new news. So Melody Adams, LGBT, commented back to James saying, now imagine the smaller influencers and artists you are stealing from regularly without battering an eyelid. The hypocrisy is so real with you. Comment deserves 1 billion likes, never mind 4.1k. Absolutely ridiculous. He is caught so often, okay, literally copying, ripping off people's looks. Like, I like their photo and a week later he posts the same look. It's something very eccentric. And then there's no credit given. And then I'll do a rant about it and say, well, I didn't get it from you, but thanks anyway. You know, I actually have a concrete piece of evidence regarding this. When he did one of his Halloween tutorials or something, he used music from an artist that actually reached out to me. And the artist said, hi, John, like, I was really surprised to hear my music used in James's video, but he didn't license it. He used my clip and it's the main part of his video. It's like the significant part that backs his tutorial. He's probably going to make $2,000 plus on this video and I get nothing, and it's my song, like I made it, and he didn't even ask me. And I felt so bad for this guy, and I said if you reached out to him, he said yes, he's not done anything, he's not responded. And the last thing I heard, he actually got the revenue from that video. I believe he filed a complaint against James Charles. That's not acceptable. Like literally, like he literally just you just can't, James Charles. Like, you get so mad when people steal things from you or allege that people steal things from you, but you do it all the time to people with beauty looks, and it's so frustrating. Stephanie A. Thompson, music lover, responded saying, this is my issue. Sure, it's close to copy, but Melody Adams is 100% on point. James Charles constantly takes inspiration of others who, without proper cred. How does he even have the right to complain when he'll put an Wet n Wild to someone else next week? So why should we care? I don't understand the last bit, but I get the general gist of it and I agree. And then someone else just responded generally saying, James Charles wants to run around claiming he formulated the Morphe palette. The truth is he didn't. When he realised his palette, he couldn't tell people why all reds but 40 and carmine are not permitted by law in eye makeup. The reason, phototoxic reaction in some people. He formulated that palette in the way that someone who walks into a restaurant, is served an already existing dish, says, needs more salt, wrote the recipe. That's, you know, Leah, I think that's a very powerful analogy. And, you know, what do you think about this? What do you think of the situation? Because I kind of get every side. Like, Wet n Wild, I don't think they were really, like, I get what they were saying about Morphe. It was kind of exposing them, but not at the same time, because most brands either manufacture themselves or they do use a manufacturer. My dream is to manufacture everything in-house, but I don't right now. I'm trying to finalize a facility. Most brands in cosmetics, even big brands that you see, Chanel, people like that, a lot of them use different factories around the world, but it's the same factories that, for example, like I've spoken to these factories before as well. There's one in the US called the CCC. They literally make so many Sephora brands products, like Kat Von D Beauty, loads of other people like that. They're very well known, but a lot of these different brands are made in the same place, and often you can buy the formula like white labeling. So a lot of brands actually have like the same formula in their like eyebrow pencils and stuff like that, because they're just buying it from a factory that already makes one of their products. So they might have invested to have one of the products formulated, but but then the factory says, by the way, we have some extra formulas if you want to try them, and then they'll buy it from them. But then other brands will have the same formula because it's not like unique to them. Most people don't mind. Most people just want a good performing formula from a brand that they trust, you know, so most people aren't so bothered about it. Someone said, can you do a favour and swoop up Jaclyn Hill's palette too with your name, because I want it but refuse to support her. Someone said, look up Beauty Glaze on Amazon, you are welcome. Someone said agrees, Beauty Glaze, awesome. Someone said it was a 35B, a few more neutrals from 35W. Someone said, yeah, Natty constantly mentions the 35B. Morphe doesn't sell it anymore because it's James Charles now. Now I actually love and have several Morphe palettes, but sorry, not sorry. All James Charles does is whine and cry about everything. I'll buy Wet n Wild's palette just cause. Official Natty is the one that made up so many rumours about my brand. I already spoke about this 2 days ago. He literally posted a video saying my eyeshadows burnt people's eyes and my lipsticks burnt his lips. And he blocked me on Instagram before he even posted his videos. He didn't respond to any emails, or because he wanted a shout out from Jeffree Star. And when I spoke about this in my last video, someone commented back to me and said, John, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Jeffree stopped paying attention to him, so he ran to Manny instead, and now he asks kisses Manny for shout out. So whole thing is so ridiculous. So ridiculous. I'm going to read you one more. Someone said, James Charles, I don't care. I think it's actually pretty unprofessional to call out a makeup company that's 40 years old, and we've all been played in this and still use this day about friggin' rainbow palette that's literally wasn't the first and won't be the last. You know, that's true. Do you remember when Marlena Makeup Geek was commenting on some of the big scandals to do with influencers demanding like certain amounts of money, and James Charles really came for her and was like very condescending, saying, you know, nothing about makeup and stuff like that. It was something along the lines of that. And it was like, she's a CEO of a cosmetics company that's been trading for what, like 10 years or something, what, 8 years? She's obviously experienced in cosmetics, you know, like, just because the company might not be doing so well doesn't mean that she's like not in a position to talk about these things, you know? Anyway, what do you think about this situation? Someone said, Wet n Wild AF. It's quite funny. And then someone said, doesn't James copy people all the time? Situation is crazy. Pepper, what do you think of the situation? I don't trust you, bitch. Honestly, titties are shaking around the world. Babies are flying around the sky. Oh, honestly, I did not expect this tea today. Minding my own business. Everyone was peaceful. Everyone was happy. Out of nowhere, massive scandal kicks off. Probably going to do a video fixing my hair a little bit. Just this isn't it finished. This is just like midway through. I just wanted a little bit of time for it to rest. But thank you for your comments on it. I'm kind of happy with it. It's different, isn't it? I received a lot of comments after my video I posted earlier to do with food problems and stuff like that, and this is something I want to talk about. I've already filmed a video and edited it. I just need to go back and re-edit it. I will be posting something hopefully in the next 48 hours regarding that. It's going to be a better than nothing video. So it's not solving all the problems, but it's giving you a solution. It's better than nothing, hopefully, of things that have just personally worked for me really well the past few months. So anyway, that is everything for today's video. Hopefully the lighting isn't too warm for you, because when I first got this lighting set up, it's a bit too warm, so I know. Same with the audio, hope it's all okay. I really do want your feedback. Backdrop, don't even worry about it. I'm just waiting for some parts to arrive. If you want to find my ASMR channel, it's just on my main channel now, JohnKuckian. If you just click on my name, you'll see Cookie ASMR on the right hand side. And you can subscribe and turn notifications, and then when I start posting, it's gonna be ASMR Cookian. Very excited. Anyway, I want to say a massive thank you for watching. I want to say a massive... Oh! Papa! I want to say thank you for all the support in yesterday's video. I want to say a massive thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.